Touch a piece of metal. Now touch a piece of wood sitting right beside it. The metal feels cold. The wood feels warm. Everybody knows that. You walk into a room, everything in it has been sitting there for hours, and you'd swear the metal doorknob is 10 degrees colder than the wooden door it's attached to. You'd bet money on it. I mean, you can feel it with your own hand. Your hand is a thermometer, right? And it says, cold. Metal is cold. That's completely wrong. And I can prove it. Not just that your intuition is a little off, or that you're exaggerating. I mean the entire framework you're using to understand what your hand is telling you is backwards. Your hand is not measuring temperature. It never was. And once you see what it's actually doing, you'll never trust your fingers the same way again. Let me start by making the case for the thing you already believe, because I think it's important to understand why it feels so convincing. You've touched metal things your whole life. Coins, railings, park benches, tools in the garage. And every single time, if it's a cool day, metal feels colder than everything else around it. You've touched wooden tables and fabric chairs and ceramic mugs, and none of them bite the way metal does. So your brain has built a very reasonable model of the world. Metal is a cold material. Wood is a warm material. Some things are just cold by nature. And this isn't some childish misunderstanding. If you went around a university campus and asked people, a surprising number of educated adults would hesitate before answering. Some would get it right, but many would fumble. Because the sensation is so vivid, so immediate, so repeatable, that it feels like direct evidence. You're not guessing. You're not speculating. You're touching the thing and reporting what you feel. How could that be wrong? Here's why it's so convincing. Every experience you've ever had confirms it. Every cold morning when you grab a metal gate. Every time you sit on a wooden bench versus a metal one. Your whole life is one long experiment, and the results always come out the same way. Metal is cold. Wood is warm. It's not even a theory to you. It's a fact. You felt it. So let me ask you something. If you put a thermometer, a real thermometer, on the metal and on the wood, what do you think it would say? Same temperature. Exactly the same. If they've been sitting in the same room for a few hours, they're at the same temperature as the air. The metal doorknob is the same temperature as the wooden door. The steel railing is the same temperature as the wooden post beside it. A mercury thermometer doesn't care what the material is. It reads a number, and the number is the same. So now you've got a problem. Your hand says one thing. The thermometer says another. One of them is wrong. And I'll tell you right now, it's not the thermometer. But that's strange, isn't it? Because your hand isn't malfunctioning. Your nerves aren't broken. You really do feel something different when you touch metal versus wood. The sensation is real. So what's going on? Let's think about this carefully. What exactly is your hand detecting? See, here's where people go wrong. They assume the hand is a thermometer. They think the nerve endings in your skin are measuring the temperature of whatever you touch. But that's not what's happening, not even close. Your nerve endings are measuring something, but it's not the temperature of the object. They're measuring the temperature of your own skin. That's all they can do. They sit inside your skin, and they report whether the skin around them is getting hotter or getting colder. They don't reach out and take the temperature of the table. They don't send little probes into the metal. They just sit there and feel what's happening locally, right where they are, in the tissue of your fingertip. So when you touch a piece of metal and it feels cold, what's actually happening is that the skin on your fingertip is getting colder, fast. And your nerves report that rapid cooling as a strong cold sensation. When you touch wood at the same temperature, your skin also cools down. But it cools down slowly, much more slowly. And your nerves report that gentle, gradual cooling as a mild or even neutral sensation. Same temperature. Different rate of heat loss from your finger. Completely different feeling. So the question is not why is metal colder than wood? The question is why does metal pull heat out of your finger faster than wood does? And that question has a very precise, very beautiful answer. Let me back up for a second. What is heat? not temperature. Heat. They're different things, and the difference matters enormously here. Temperature is a number. It tells you something about how much the molecules in a substance are jiggling around. Hot things have molecules bouncing fast. Cold things have molecules that are more sluggish. Temperature is a way of describing that average jiggle. Heat is something else. Heat is energy in transit. It's energy flowing from one place to another because of a temperature difference. If you put a hot thing next to a cold thing, energy flows from the hot one to the cold one. That flow is heat. Heat is a verb, not a noun. It's a process, not a stuff. You don't have heat sitting in an object. You have energy moving between objects. And it only moves when there's a temperature difference to drive it. So when your finger touches metal at room temperature, your finger is warmer than the metal. Your body keeps your skin at about 37 degrees Celsius, give or take. The room is maybe 22. So there's a temperature difference. And energy flows from your finger into the metal. That's heat. That flow is what you feel. But here's the key. The rate of that flow depends on what the energy is flowing into. And different materials accept energy at wildly different rates. Think about it this way. Imagine you have a bucket of water and you pour it into a funnel. If the funnel has a wide opening and drains fast, the water disappears quickly. If the funnel is narrow and drains slowly, the water backs up. The amount of water is the same. The speed at which it drains is different. Your finger is the bucket. The heat energy is the water. The material you're touching is the funnel. Metal is a wide, fast-draining funnel. Wood is narrow and slow. Why? What makes metal so good at accepting heat? This is where we get to the real physics, and it's gorgeous. Let's talk about what's inside metal at the atomic level. Metal is a crystal lattice. Atoms arranged in a regular pattern, packed tight, bonded to their neighbors. But here's the thing about metals that makes them special. They have free electrons. Lots of them. In a chunk of copper or aluminum or steel, some of the electrons are not bound to individual atoms. They roam freely through the entire piece of metal, like a gas of electrons flowing between the fixed atomic cores. These free electrons are the reason metals conduct electricity. You probably know that. Copper wire carries current because electrons can move through it easily. But those same free electrons also carry heat. They are spectacular at transporting thermal energy. When your warm finger touches cold metal, the energy from your skin hits the surface of the metal, and those free electrons grab it and carry it away, deep into the metal, fast. The surface doesn't warm up much because the energy doesn't stay there. It gets distributed through the bulk of the material almost immediately. So the surface stays cool, and your finger keeps dumping heat into it, and the metal keeps whisking that heat away into its interior. It's like putting your hand against a cold river. The water right next to your hand warms up a tiny bit, but the current carries that warm water away and replaces it with fresh, cold water. Your hand keeps losing heat because the cold surface keeps getting refreshed. Metal does the same thing, except instead of flowing water, it's flowing electrons carrying energy into the depths of the material. Now think about wood. Wood is made of cellulose, lignin, complex organic molecules. No free electrons, not even close. The atoms in wood are locked into long polymer chains, and heat can only move through wood by one atom vibrating and nudging its neighbor, which nudges its neighbor, which nudges its neighbor. It's slow, painfully slow compared to metal. When your finger touches wood, the heat flows into the surface layer, but it doesn't go anywhere fast. It just sits there in the top fraction of a millimeter of wood, warming up that thin layer. And now the surface of the wood is almost as warm as your finger, and there's barely any temperature difference left. So the heat flow slows to a trickle. Your finger stops cooling down. The sensation? Neutral. Warm even. Comfortable. Same starting temperature. Same finger. But the physics of how energy moves through the material changes everything about how the experience feels. The quantity that captures all of this is called thermal conductivity. It's a number that tells you how easily heat flows through a material. Copper has a thermal conductivity of about 390 watts per meter per degree. That's enormous. Aluminum is around 237. Steel is about 50. Wood? Wood is somewhere around 0.1 to 0.2. That's roughly 2,000 times less than copper. 2,000 times. Think about that. The difference between how fast heat moves through metal versus wood is not 10%, not double, not 10 times. It's thousands of times. No wonder they feel so different to your hand. Your skin is experiencing two completely different rates of energy loss, and it interprets that as two completely different temperatures. But it's not temperature at all. It's conductivity. Now, thermal conductivity isn't the whole story. There's another quantity that matters, and it's a bit more subtle. It's called thermal effusivity. This one combines conductivity with density and heat capacity, and it tells you how quickly a material can absorb heat from something it's in contact with. It's actually the better predictor of how warm or cold something feels to the touch. Let me explain why. Conductivity tells you how fast heat moves through the material once it's inside. But effusivity tells you how aggressively the surface grabs heat from your finger at the moment of contact. A material with high effusivity is like a sponge for heat. It soaks it up instantly. A material with low effusivity barely sips. Metal has high effusivity. Your finger touches it, and the surface immediately starts pulling energy out of your skin at a ferocious rate. Your skin temperature drops fast. You feel intense cold. Wood has low effusivity. Your finger touches it, and the surface barely takes any heat. Your skin temperature stays almost the same. You feel neutral or warm. Styrofoam is even more extreme. Styrofoam is almost all air, with tiny pockets trapped in a foam structure. Its effusivity is almost nothing. You can touch styrofoam that's been sitting in a freezer, and it still feels pretty gentle, because it simply cannot pull heat out of your skin fast enough to trigger a strong cold sensation. Meanwhile, a piece of metal from the same freezer would feel like it's burning you with cold. Same temperature, radically different sensation, because it was never about temperature in the first place. Let me push this further, because once you see the principle, it shows up everywhere, and you start noticing things you've been ignoring your entire life. Why do tile bathroom floors feel colder than the bath mat in the morning? Same room, same air temperature, same floor temperature, but tile is ceramic. Decent thermal conductivity, high effusivity. The bath mat is fabric, full of trapped air. Low conductivity, low effusivity. Your bare feet lose heat to the tile much faster than to the bath mat, and your nerves interpret that as the tile being colder. It's not. It's the same temperature. Your feet are lying to you. Or rather, your feet are telling you the truth about heat flow, and your brain is translating it wrong. Why does a metal spoon in a pot of soup get so hot you can't hold it, while a wooden spoon stays comfortable? Same pot, same soup temperature. The metal conducts heat from the soup up through the handle to your fingers, quickly and efficiently. The wood conducts it so slowly that the handle stays close to room temperature even while the tip is sitting in boiling liquid. Your wooden spoon is not cooler than the metal one at the tip. They're both in the same soup, but the handle of the wooden spoon is much cooler, because the heat can't travel up the wood fast enough. Pot holders. Oven mitts. Why do they work? The oven is at 200 degrees Celsius. The pot inside is at 200 degrees. If you grab the pot with bare hands, you'd burn yourself instantly. But wrap your hand in thick fabric with lots of trapped air, and you're fine for several seconds. The fabric isn't magic. It's not canceling the heat. It's just conducting it so slowly that your skin temperature barely rises during the few seconds you're holding the pot. The energy is trying to get to your hand. It just can't get there fast enough through the insulating material. And this connects to something deeper. Why are metals such good conductors? I mentioned free electrons, but let me go a little deeper into why those electrons matter so much. In a metal, the outer electrons of each atom are not really attached to any particular atom. They belong to the whole crystal. Physicists call this an electron gas, or sometimes an electron sea. These electrons zip around at enormous speeds, hundreds of kilometers per second, bouncing off the lattice of atomic cores, constantly redistributing energy throughout the material. When one spot on the metal gets a little extra energy, say from your warm finger, those electrons pick it up and scatter it throughout the bulk almost instantaneously. The energy doesn't have to hop from atom to atom through slow mechanical vibrations. It rides the electron express. And the electron express is fast. In a non-metal, in wood or plastic or glass or ceramic, there's no electron gas. The electrons are locked in place, bound tightly to their atoms or shared in covalent bonds that don't allow free movement. So energy can only move by lattice vibrations. One atom jiggles, pushes its neighbor, which pushes the next. It's like passing a message down a line of people by tapping each one on the shoulder. Slow, lossy, inefficient. This is also why metals conduct electricity, and wood doesn't. It's the same physics. The same free electrons that carry heat also carry electrical current. Conductivity of heat and conductivity of electricity are deeply linked in metals. There's actually a law about this. It's called the Weidemann-Franz law. It says that for metals, the ratio of electrical conductivity to thermal conductivity is roughly the same, proportional to the temperature. The same electrons doing both jobs. That's a beautiful thing, by the way. One underlying mechanism, free electrons, explains two seemingly different properties: heat conduction and electrical conduction. Physics loves that kind of economy. One cause, multiple effects. When you see that pattern, you know you've found something real. But now I want to come back to your hand, because there's another layer to this that most people miss. Your hand is not a passive instrument. It's an active thermodynamic system. Your body is pumping blood through your fingers, keeping them warm. Your metabolism is generating heat constantly. When you touch a cold surface, you're not just losing stored heat. Your circulatory system is actively trying to replace that lost heat, pumping warm blood to your fingertips. So the sensation you feel depends on the balance between how fast the material pulls heat away and how fast your body can replace it. If the material pulls heat slowly, like wood, your body keeps up easily, your skin stays warm, and you feel comfortable. If the material pulls heat fast, like metal, your body can't keep up. Your skin temperature drops, and you feel cold, really cold, maybe painfully cold,